At the heart of good communication is not what the speaker says or what a writer writes. Researchers into communication have made clear through various studies over many years that the heart of good communication is centred on what someone hears, what they receive, what they read. That's where the quality of communication and its effectiveness shows up. Well, I wonder how your communication skills are at the moment. Have you come out of the lockdown life that's been, well, all our lives for the past 2 years now, and found yourselves really keen to be engaging with people and speaking and sharing with them? For those of us who are introverts, there were some charming things about aspects of lockdown life. However, friends of mine who are extroverts just about went crazy. But I have noticed that since the lockdown has ended, they're not quite as keen as they once were to spend hours bending my ear, telling me everything that's just popping into their head as it does. I know I certainly found those first interactions when lockdowns would end and once again we were allowed to meet with friends for coffee at a cafe, strange experiences, because after about an hour I'd find myself looking on the surface of the cafe table for the red button marked leave so I could press it, and the red one that says leave now would appear. We actually had to end the conversations in a way other than see you later, press the button. Communication is of the utmost importance to God. And helpfully for us, God is a good communicator. What we hear and what we understand about him is key to him and how he speaks to us. The Bible starts with God communicating his creative will. In Genesis, the first thing God says is, "Let there be light." And there is light. His words are effective and powerful to bring about what he has in mind. Our reading from Hebrews that Jenny read to us tells us that God has spoken to us in various ways over many years through the prophets. But now he has spoken to us in an even more superior way, by the one through whom all that exists has come to be, the one who is the exact reflection of God's own glory, which shows what the presence of God is like, and who has the exact imprint of God's very being. That is, he is God of God, light of light, true God of true God. And the message we hear through this one, through the work of the Son, is that God has worked through the Son what is necessary for us to each be reconciled with our Heavenly Father, with God. Channels of communication to know God's heart and to live as he calls us to are open through the Son. It seems almost unthinkable that God himself would take on human flesh and come among us. But what better way for us to understand and see how true life must be lived, should be lived? It's so contrary to what we would do to communicate, to influence, to make a public stand. Well, here's a hypothetical. You are an important and powerful person and you want other people to sit up and take notice of you. How would you do that in your daily sphere? What's the surefire way of establishing who you are and what you're on about? What would you suggest? As I see it, and as I see it through the way the media portrays these things, at one end of the scale you have people like Steve Jobs, dressed austerely in his black polo neck and standing on a large stage, empty of anything except a plinth with the latest Apple product. We've all seen that on the TV or the news, and none of us have any question in our minds, do we, who is holding the floor there? At the other end of the scale, think Xi Jinping or Kim Jong-un presiding over what seems like an endless military parade. People, machines rhythmically trundling by, filling vast public squares with perfectly aligned, gleamingly shiny soldiers and armaments. Or think of those who are born to it, like the British royal family, as they step out onto the balcony at Buckingham Palace, apparently trying to look like a normal family, as all the world seems to press in at the palace fence, clamouring for a permitted and controlled glimpse of the royal personages. That Jesus, Emmanuel, God with us, was born as a baby tells us a lot about what God thinks is important for us to know about him. That Jesus was born as a baby tells us that God makes himself vulnerable to us. He doesn't distance himself from us, stand aloof, look down on us, force us to step in line or stand back and admire how fabulous he is. He's open to us getting really up close, right up close, seeing him without a protective buffer or a security guard, or stand far away so he doesn't have to listen to us or really look us in the eye. That Jesus was born as a vulnerable baby tells us that God is not distant, but right with us in the thick of life, with us in navigating both the ups and the downs, with us in experiencing joy and sorrow, advantage and disadvantage, in the exhaustion of a long day's work and in the relief of a good night's sleep. He knows firsthand the gamut of human experience. He's right next to us, shoulder to shoulder, in all that mires or uplifts in human experience. The Word became flesh and lived among us, John says. That Jesus was born a baby tells us how we can approach God. Eagerly, interested to form a new relationship, not standing on ceremony. God's first priority is a relationship with us, not to judge us. We might think that on meeting us, God would pull out a great long list with everything we've ever done wrong on it, a sort of a aha, gotcha list that puts us in our place. But instead, God comes to us as a vulnerable, fragile baby. That Jesus was born as a baby tells us that God openly welcomes us. In the same way that when you meet a baby, the baby looks at you, searching your face, looking to lock eyes with you before breaking into that total, full-body sunshine smile, God also openly welcomes each one of us. As John writes, to those who receive Jesus, who believe in his name, he gives power to become children of God. Jesus, born as a baby, stands as a sign to us that through meeting and knowing him, we can be born again. We are, in fact, the ones who find ourselves at the start of a brand new life. John writes, what has come into being through Jesus is life, and the life is the light of all people. Through Jesus, we are invited to know life in all its fullness, to know and share his transforming love. We are invited through Jesus to know our Heavenly Father, to live as God's child. Jesus being born as a baby tells us the central issue for God is that we are able to know him, that we are able to meet him face to face. Each Christmas, every one of us is invited again to figuratively, with the shepherds, make the journey in from the outlying areas to the heart of what it is that God invites us to see him vulnerable, welcoming, and just as keen as ever to receive his friendship. John writes, and the Word became flesh and lived among us, and we have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. The heart of good communication is centred in what someone hears, what someone understands through reading what we've written. So, not a hypothetical question this time. What about you? The true light that enlightens everyone has come into the world. What might be stopping you hearing Jesus' call?